Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 496, recorded live on Saturday, November 18th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning Evilbeeker. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And also our special guest, a very appropriate episode for her, Lynnabel. Welcome back.
Hey, what's hissity happening? Yeah, boy.
Pretty good show.
I messed.
Let's see, our screenshot of the week. Morgan enjoys the beauty of Evening Star in the latest screenshot of the week. Very nice. Very pretty. Nice sun setting. I love it. I'm assuming this is in the actual town, either the town or King's Forest, one of the two.
Oh, yeah, I don't recognize it.
That's in the town. That's definitely in the town, for sure. I can recognize the skyline.
Yeah. Kind of
She's likely standing in the weeds next to the flat part of the river. It's underneath the gigantic bridge that leads to Eternal Home. I know that hill anywhere. I'm 100% serious.
There you go. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website, DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Saturday. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we have Ravenloft Preview number 2, so we can talk about that, which will include some raid loot. We got first look at raid loot, which I know Lynnabel is really excited to talk to us about. There's also we got our first look at Sentient Weapons, so we'll go through, we'll kind of unpack that system. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But our main discussion, we're talking about a Ravenloft preview, and we're not going to go into a bunch of spoilers. We're not trying to do that. What we're doing is just answer some questions like, what is Ravenloft? Why is Ravenloft coming to DDO really exciting? Why are all these people who know things about Ravenloft really, really excited? And if you don't know anything about Ravenloft, why should you be excited? That kind of stuff. We're also going to be looking at kind of go a little bit more in depth than we have on the packs that you can buy and what the costs are and what you'll get from those and why those things are really, really cool. And our main goal for this discussion is not to make Lynnabel say anything that's going to get her in trouble. So Lynnabel has been an intern dev. Is it technically intern or full dev? Or you've worked with SSG off and on.
It took like a 40-minute interview to sort that out when I was on DDO Players News, and we concluded after much deliberation that I am definitely an intern.
Okay. So coffee getting is part of your job description?
Actually, at one point, Steelstar bought me coffee, and I never once did actually buy Steelstar coffee, so I think he was the intern all along.
Okay. So anyways, so just to put this out there, yes, I'm aware that we have someone who's on the show. We're giving advice. She will have to dance this really fun line.
I'll just not be here. It's okay. Just pretend I'm not even here. Just don't even look at me.
It'll be great, though, because we'll get a little bit inside of what's kind of behind the scenes and what's really cool about this stuff. And I know you've been really itching to talk about some of this stuff for, 2 years since you started seeing some of that
forever?
Stuff? Yeah.
The first time I saw Visani Knife Fighter was my third week of working at Turbine 2 years ago.
So a lot of fun stuff. We'll really start unpacking that. To start, I thought I'd say a lot of people probably don't really know anything about Ravenloft. Myself actually included. I've played D&D for a long time and pen and paper and that stuff, but my group was never into modules. We always kind of made our own stuff. I have always made my stuff. I didn't want to go buy the books. I think I've bought the core books for 3rd edition and 4th edition, and then I have a bunch of other books that I managed to find for free or really cheap or not full price. So we just never really invested in that. So we're going to start by saying, what is Ravenloft? Why is this a really cool thing? And Evilbeeker has put together a little history lesson for us.
I have. So for those who may or may not know, I am a very old-time gamer. I started gaming in 1980, which goes back a ways. And Ravenloft was very instrumental in the D&D world, because following the Forgotten Realms, it was one of the biggest campaign settings to come out of TSR. So at its core, Ravenloft is a horror campaign setting for D&D. So it's gothic horror, such as Dracula or Frankenstein, the Wolfman, things like that. In the original setting, used mechanics such as fear and horror throughout the game to kind of set the tone and what the PCs and the DM had to deal with over the course of an adventure. It also allowed the DM to turn characters evil if they did something questionable. So if you killed an innocent person or something like that, you could actually gain the attention of what used to be called the dark powers. Okay, the evil entities behind Ravenloft, and then you would become an NPC and then move on to your next character. So it was a little bit different than anything that had come before it. But when you go back in history, it didn't start off as a campaign setting. So Ravenloft was actually the brainchild of Tracy and Laura Hickman. And if you recognize the name Tracy Hickman, that's one of the creators of Dragonlance, which is another popular D&D setting. And they were credited with creating the original standalone adventure called Ravenloft. Occasionally you've probably heard Jerry refer to it as I6. And the reason for that was the back in the day, TSR would put little numbers or letters associated with all their adventures. And that was published in 1983. The cover art was by Clyde Caldwell, and he's done tons of stuff for TSR. And that's the digitally reproduced vampire on the side of the castle there that Jerry's showed around, and that you can download it as wallpaper, which I gotta admit is spectacular. The I6 adventure also had isometric maps, which are kind of like the 3D shaped maps. And those were drawn from Tracy's notes by a gentleman who used to be a cartographer for TSR named David Sutherland, who passed away a few years ago. To this day, copies of I6 have been one of the toughest D&D modules to find in the original print. Personally, I had a Xerox copy of it. I could never find one. So it instantly sold out. It was extremely popular, and as a result, a second adventure was created, and then the campaign setting. The original story of Ravenloft sends a group of player characters into a nation of Barovia. And back in the day, not everybody. So the original D&D campaign world is the world of Greyhawk, if people aren't familiar with that. But a lot of people, like Patrick, you mentioned, had their own homegrown campaigns and what have you. It was a generically set nation of Barovia, and that was surrounded by a magical fog. And at the center of that fog was Castle Ravenloft, ruled by Count Strahd, who would terrorize the residents of Barovia, and basically was a very bad place to be at night between all the creatures of the night. The backstory behind Strahd was he had fallen in love with a young girl who was his brother, who loved his brother. So Strahd blamed he was a few years older, so he blamed himself for being older for his rejection, and he slew his brother to get the girl's favor. Obviously she didn't know, but instead she kills herself, and as a result the dark powers turned him into a vampire. In the I6 adventure itself, the players are tasked with finding special weapons and information in and around Castle Ravenloft so that they can defeat Strahd, who was an extremely powerful magic-using vampire. Okay, and that's kind of where some of the concepts of mixing player character races with monsters originally came from. The way Tracy designed this Ravenloft and what would come after it over a course of several years. So the big thing was he would run what he called Castle Ravenloft at TSR every Halloween. Okay. And from, I think, the late 70s to somewhere in the early 80s. And it was he would always brag that Strahd could kill anybody. They'd bring in somebody with mirrored sunglasses, and then he would find a way around it. And also some of the more classic characters in D&D history were also brought in to fight Strahd, and of course none of them ever won. So then in the end, he ended up turning into an adventure. So as I6 was so popular, obviously, like I said, they did a sequel, which was called The House on Griffin Hill, which was published in 1986. And while Tracy is credited with writing the adventure, he left TSR halfway through the project. And it was picked up by some of the more well-known designers of the time, Zeb Cook, Jeff Grubb, Doug Niles, and Harold Johnson. And between those guys, they created that second adventure, which had elements of the first adventure in it, but there was also a lich in the adventure, and the party had to deal with Strahd and the lich. And again, extremely popular adventure, sold out everywhere. I had only had a photocopy of it. So after they realized how popular the setting was, they immediately decided to turn it into a campaign world. And then in 1990, they published Ravenloft, The Realms of Terror campaign setting. And what that campaign setting did was a little different. It created instead of a nation surrounded by a magical fog, you would get pulled in by the mists of Ravenloft to a different plane. They call it demi-plane of dread. And if you were, and in that demi-plane, there were domains, and each of those domains were ruled by a Dark Lord. Obviously, Strahd ruled over Barovia, but then they pulled in villains from other TSR products. So you had Lord Soth from Dragonlance. He was the Death Knight in Dragonlance. Vecna the Undying from Greyhawk. He was the famous lich where the hand and the eye of Vecna came from. There was Azalan the Lich that was from the House on Griffin Hill. And then, of course, Count Strahd. And each one of them would rule their own domains. So you would get pulled into the domain by the mists, and then had to figure out how to get out. And the mists could appear anywhere. So they could appear in any game setting, any campaign, home, published, whatever. So it became a very popular game setting. Even if you just bought one adventure, you could say, oh, you get pulled into the mists for one adventure, and then you could go back to your regular campaign. And, you're talking about campaigns from Forgotten Realms, Krynn, which is Dragonlance, Greyhawk, and even the World of Dark Sun, for those of you who are old-time gamers who know what that is. The Realms of Terror was written by Bruce Nesmith and Andrea Hayday. And since then, it's spawned probably over 100 other game products and novels. And some of the novels were extremely well-written novels by many of the more prominent novelists of the day. So, and then in addition to that, there were also a group of products called the Van Richten's Guides. So Van Richten in Ravenloft is kind of like Van Helsing's Dracula. Okay. So the Van Richten Guides focused on various types of undead. And they also became very popular product for people who didn't play Ravenloft, because here you had here's one of the first source books on vampires. Here's one of the first source books on werewolves. So this was like the first time back in the 90s where you had products dedicated to a specific type of villain or creature. Then around the year 2000, after Wizards of the Coast purchased TSR, they actually licensed Ravenloft to the Sword and Sorcery Studios. And that's where the third edition D&D version of Ravenloft came from. But that license excluded elements from other campaign worlds like Dragonlance and Greyhawk. So you didn't have Lord Soth, you didn't have Vecna, you didn't have some of these other ones because they were individual licensed properties. So at this point, Wizards of the Coast was really keeping strict control over their intellectual properties and who got to use them. In 2006, Wizards of the Coast kind of went through this revival process where they were redoing a lot of the old adventures for people who obviously maybe not have been around to buy them the first time, but then they also included D&D version 3.5 conversion rules. So you had Expedition to Castle Ravenloft was the kind of the return to the castle, the I6 product, and that was in 2006. The most recent offering of Ravenloft since then was a year and a half ago. Wizards of the Coast produced Curse of Strahd, which was a campaign setting for 5th edition. And that transported first level characters into the mists. And then once and it was only Barovia. So it wasn't they may have called it the Domain of Dread, but it was only, they didn't have the different areas. It was just the one Barovia and then the countryside surrounding that. So then the characters would go through the whole quest, find out who Strahd was, and then find out how to defeat him. And then once you defeat him, you're allowed to leave.
All as a level 1 character.
No, but by the time you're done adventuring through the whole thing, you're in like 9th or 10th level. And I just ran this for my group, and they got lucky. They defeated Strahd, but not without a couple of casualties, and they did it at 10th level. So that gives you kind of like a very high level overview of Ravenloft. And it's always been an extremely popular product. It actually spawned a second campaign setting within it called Mask of the Red Death, which was was more Gothic horror in Victorian age. So it wasn't Ravenloft per se, but it used the same fear and horror mechanics that you had in the original game. And that was a pretty popular kind of offshoot of Ravenloft back in the day as well. So, and that brings us to, the licensing by Standing Stone Games. I was utterly thrilled when I heard this because this is a game that I've played, almost all of my gaming life in one form or another over the years. And I'm sure I'm not the only person out there that has a very similar story to playing I6 and then moving to the campaign setting, and here, all these years later, now I get a chance to play it on a computer screen. So that's pretty cool.
So it's about a little more than 25 years old, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, the original Ravenloft, I believe Tracy
years old.
Tracy came up with in 1977 or 78, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is quite, and back in the day, so years and years ago, even when Gary Gygax was in charge of TSR, there was always these ideas of how do we make other worlds for D&D. So there was a campaign setting called Empire of the Petal Throne, which was kind of like a science fiction D&D mash. And then there was things like Star Frontiers and Gamma World and all these old classics. But it wasn't till Forgotten Realms came along that they understood how well a campaign setting really could sell and be developed by multiple people with adventures and source books and what have you. And Ravenloft was one of those brainchilds.
So there you go. There's the history lesson for today. Thank you very much for putting that together.
Hey.
For those of us who are unfamiliar with Ravenloft, it is pretty exciting, and this is coming on the heels too of this is our 4th classic module, right? Because we've got Haunted Halls, and then Temple of Elemental Evil and the Sultan of Slave Lords, which all were done really well. I think. I think the only reason Temple of Elemental Evil isn't really a popular run is because it was pretty grindy when it came to loot. But the quest itself, I think, was a lot of fun.
I think Standing Stone Games has done a great job of converting old D&D stuff over to DDO. And even if they're only, my guess, and Lynnabel can nod her head a little bit if she wants, they're probably
pretend I'm not even here.
they're probably only sticking to the Curse of Strahd product, which is still an excellent product as far as here you have a world there, or and even if it's encapsulated into a country, okay, and in that country, here's your bad guy, here's your common folk that live around, in the land, here's the monsters that roam the countryside, et cetera, et cetera. Even that, without even going back 20 years to some of the those 100 game products, you still have a very rich, kind of a different feel. It's D&D, it's DDO, but it's got that little bit of a horror feel to it. I think that's spectacular.
One thing I can say though is that you're right. Even with just the Curse of Strahd, the stuff in Ravenloft feels so substantially different than the stuff in the rest of Dungeons and Dragons Online. It feels very similar to the divide between Eberron and the Forgotten Realms, where it's very clear Evening Star is a totally different world. Ravenloft is totally different.
Yeah, you can see some of it. It's actually up for preview right now, so you could go on the money and see it through Monday. They only promised us. They only promised us two. They said at least 2 previews. We might get another one. Kind of iffy on that because next week is Thanksgiving in the U.S. I'm going to assume they're all going to enjoy that holiday before they release Ravenloft. So I doubt we'll see anything next week, and then the week after maybe would kind of be the only other time frame, and then they're earmarking December 5th. So yeah, it's super exciting because it's such a rich history. Thank you again for going through that. It's very rich history, long-standing. I think you said it came out first time, in 83 as a...
Yep. The first published product was 83, right. But yeah.
So it's such a long time in history and opportunity for people to play this, and it is one of the more popular ones. And it's one of those things, like, every time they're like, hey, we're going to do another module, and everyone's like, Ravenloft, come on, Ravenloft. Temple of Elemental Evil's cool, but it's not Ravenloft, right? That was kind of all the reactions, right? So, and it's one of the things that I think you kind of keyed in on, this idea of it being more of a horror setting. Or I think it'd be kind of interesting to see how they incorporate that, because we don't really have that as a setting or a style per se in DDO. At least I can't really think of anything that really fulfills. There's some undead and stuff like that, but there's not really horror. I'm hoping there's not a lot of jump scaring because I think it's kind of cheesy. But anyways, we'll kind of see what's going on. So yeah, that's pretty exciting stuff. Lynnabel, is there some stuff you maybe want to share that you can publicly share about why this is going to be really cool and amazing? I mean, Strahd has a cape.
Strahd has a cape. Cape's around. Cape confirmed. Put that in the list of things. The joke placeholder name of the invisible cape of Strahd is still on the cape in Lamania, which is hopefully someone gets around and fixing that. But if they don't, that's hilarious. Because I would love to wear the invisible cape of Strahd. So from even when we were working on Update 36, over half the team was working on Ravenloft, and everybody loved U36, and that was like a small subsection of the team. Like everybody still did something for U36, but like everyone was still like, okay, that's that for that stuff, back to Ravenloft. So if everyone really liked U36, and that was like a small subsection of what's possible from the new team, from what I've seen of Ravenloft, it's really good. It's excellent content. It's excellent content. It's an excellent atmosphere. I'm really biased on this, but I think the raid items were very well designed. Whoever did that, it's really good.
It's pretty good for a first pass on raid loot.
You stop. But no, honestly though, speaking as a player, content level 10, it could be the worst content in the universe, and I would still run it rather than going through 3-0 and Slavers of the Shrieking Minds. It's great.
Yeah, it's kind of a sparsely populated, as we talked about our leveling series, sparsely populated level range.
Yeah. No, it's great. From what I've played of it internally and on Lamania, it's fantastic content, and I really hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, I think that's everyone really wants to enjoy, right? We love enjoying new content, and they've actually been gathering some feedback on performance because there's and they actually this week for this preview they actually introduced new settings that you can control in your video options to help people deal with the extra performance, because especially in the wilderness area where they added I think it was frills. That they added, which I'm not a game designer, so I don't really understand what that means.
I can answer it. So there are decals, 3-dimensional or 2-dimensional with bump mapping, decals that are kind of peppered throughout the landscape and that are put on top of other solid objects. And they are individually put into the game world, like the designer paints them on. But they are extra things that your computer has to render. So if your computer has trouble rendering crowds, and that's why crowd density is actually separate articulated options in DDO already, you can turn off frills and the game world will look just as it did before this update, I suppose. But if you have a nicer computer, or if you want to see these excellent graphic settings, it will make grass look grassier, and Ravenloft has a lot of grass in it, so better grass.
That quote needs to go on a dust jacket somewhere. It makes the grass look grassier.
It's what it does. That's the best I can do. No, it's like additional better rendered blades of grass in a field. Better branches on trees. Gravel on ground, waves on water.
Shiny graphics.
Stuff on stuff. It's extra stuff that you could stuff on your stuff to make the stuff look stuffier.
So, and a lot of people have said on the forums too. I don't go on Lomania to look at content generally. I might go to mess around with some stuff, but a lot of people have been saying like the graphics are a little sharper and that kind of stuff. So newer graphics, more updated graphics is as much as we can handle probably, which is pretty exciting. Is there anything else we want to say? I want to make sure we get to kind of our quote buyer's guide. Is there anything else we want to say about Ravenloft before we jump into that?
I actually did play the Curse of Strahd in pen and paper, and we almost died to the first adventure, and then the group fell apart. So that's my Death House.
Death House is awesome.
And so I walked right into Death House on Lomania, and I was like, "This is actually identical. This is incredible."
Oh, really?
It's so cool. It was actually just so cool. Like I was looking, and I was like, "Whoa." Those are the stuffed wolves that I remember we went into a gigantic amount of detail about, and they're there right there. It looks just like the drawing that was in the book. Like it was awesome.
So I'll do one thing. I'll say one thing about Death House: run fast. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. Run fast.
It was so eerie. It was so eerie. Like the music was like this eerie music, and I was like playing this, and I'm just like, I've read the module. Why am I scared? I know exactly what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, it was great. It was great.
Yeah,
it was exciting. Very exciting house. Very exciting, and a house is exciting.
I think I've always kind of noticed that people are pretty in agreement that the packs that have come out are pretty true to their source material that we've already had, so that's exciting. I think that usually the bigger things they change are for performance issues, or just from you have to change it from a game design standpoint because it just doesn't work.
Like non-feasibility. Like for example, A4 of the Slave Lords features a full character inventory wipe. Like if what's supposed to happen is you infiltrate the last slaver's stronghold, and this is in the pen and paper module. You would have to give up all your possessions and rescue them later. And if that happened in DDO, hypothetically, someone goes through that and then disconnects halfway through, and they just lost everything they've ever touched in their entire life, and that's it. So it's just things that just wouldn't work in a video game.
Which makes it, and I think everyone really wanted to see that, and once the Sandstone Games was like, yeah, we could do that, but that involves hiding all of your gear, and there were concerns about it getting lost. And we've seen from this in recent history that people get really upset when they lose stuff.
It's all behind us
also,
now.
If you didn't, fingers crossed. And if you didn't know that was going to happen, you went into a new quest and all your gear was lost, you'd probably stop right there and submit a bug report. Like, where's all my stuff? It wouldn't work out well. Okay, so what I want to do is we're going to look at the different packs and what's in them, and we'll give not so much a like buy this pack, but here's your options. If this is what you're looking for, this is what kind of player you are. This may be something that more gravitate for you. So the standard edition gives you the content, ASMR race, and what they're calling a survivors package, which is 20 astral shards and a supreme resurrection cake. So there's not a lot there, and that cost is $39.99. So and it's been pretty consistent that people have, I think, are having a bit of a sticker shock. And I did do a couple weeks ago kind of a comparison of Ravenloft and what you get points per dollar compared to like Shadowfall Conspiracy. And I mean, it's fair to say that you got more back then. But let's talk about the ASMR race, which you can actually play right now if you have it, which I will say has excellent dancing skills.
Yes. Somebody needs to be complimented on that.
Yes, I did. I saw this. It was not in the preview of Lamania with them in it. So I logged onto Lamania and /dance, and it wasn't that dance. And I honestly almost called up the end. I was like, dude, did you die? Like, where did the dance go? It's very important. The dance is top tier.
It's probably the most, when you're talking about character animations, it's probably the thing that everyone wants to know the most about, right? Is the dancing, and how good is the dancing?
Gnome Dance 2 is a close second, by the way, for excellent dance.
Male or female?
Female. I think they're both the same. It's the one that spins around. It looks like mocap, but it straight up isn't. The animator just totally eyeballed it, and it looks fantastic.
Nice.
It's fantastic.
So, and there's kind of some fun stuff with ASMR and what they get. I haven't played too much. I'm playing a Scourge ASMR right now, but I haven't played just a base ASMR. But new races are always fun. They have a lot of some different cosmetic options than you're probably used to, which is kind of fun. The content itself is going to be it's the one landscape, 12 quests. If you look at all the promotional materials, they say it's only one raid. There are 2 raids. They are both being developed. The question,
second bonus raid just came out of nowhere.
The question kind of for them was always, can we get the second raid ready in time? And in order to not push Ravenloft out too far, they said, okay, we're not going to promise this raid when it comes out, when the expansion comes out, but it's coming. It's kind of always been the intent. And actually, they almost had it in the Lamania preview, but they hit a blocker, so they couldn't preview it this time around. And that was very last minute. They were actually planning on previewing both raids this weekend. So, but that's pretty good content. By comparison, Caught in the Web. Let's see, has what? Who's gonna count quests? Caught in the Web is 11 quests in a raid, right?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Menace in the Underdark is 11 quests in a raid.
Yeah,
that's Menace in the Underdark.
I thought you were talking about, because it's historical now, but the raid Caught in the Web had several severe issues upon launch.
Yes.
Which actually prompted a full game rant of the raid loot. Say sorry about that.
Well, that was a different problem.
Next time. Yeah, that was
actually a different problem. That when Menace in the Underdark came out, Caught in the Web kind of bounced in and out of availability, but they kind of got it all ironed out. Menace in the Underdark had 11 quests. It was 2 sets of 4 and a set of 3 plus the raid. So we're getting a little bit more there, or 1 more quest and 1 more raid than that, but only 1 landscape. Although reportedly it's huge, bigger than King's Forest is what people have been saying. But it's only, it's kind of give and take, right? Because you only have 1 Slayer count, which is really what people really like doing. That's where you really start getting your XP from the Slayer areas. So, but in any case, So that's really exciting. Interestingly, coming out, I think it became more clear this week. Sentient weapons don't appear to be tied to Ravenloft, which I don't think they hadn't really. I don't think there had really been a clear indication one way or the other. But I think people were kind of generally assuming that Ravenloft would be where sentient weapons were. Turns out not the case. So if you just want sentient weapons, and you're really excited about sentient weapons, and for whatever reason you hate Ravenloft, you don't actually have to get Ravenloft to play sentient weapons. Just so you know. So that's what you get with the base pack, which I think is, we can all kind of agree that this is the bare bones, right? Like if you just want to get the content, really you're probably only buying this for the content right now. This stuff will be available in March, so you'll have to wait about 3 months before you can buy it with points in the store. But if you want the content earlier, you'll have to purchase it earlier and with real dollars, not with points. And I think it was 2,400 or 2,500 points for the content, Mr. Ravenloft, and then the race is 1,400 points. So you're getting about even just the base version, you're getting about 43 or about 4,400 points worth of stuff. Just kind of give a baseline there. Let's see. Anything else we want to say about ASMR, or should we go on to the next pack?
ASMR are fantastic. I'm playing one right now. It's my second ASMR life. They're fantastic.
I like it too. I'm playing a Night Fighter with a little bit of, and you know what? I got people in my guild that are like, oh, people don't fight with knives like that and blah blah blah. I'm like, you know what? For number one, it's just a game, and number two, it looks very.
Who cares? It's just stabbing people.
Yeah, it's a stab. Yeah. I think my guild message right now says stab, 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 stab. So they are a lot of fun.
Oh, we should mention too, ASMR is free for VIPs. So,
yes.
But if you buy this, you'll always have it. You don't have to buy it later if you become not a VIP. The collector's edition, which is $79.99, comes with Ravenloft ASMR. You get a character slot. The Survivors pack is upgraded to 50 Astral Shards, 2 Supreme Res Cakes, and a 3-Rare Res Shrine. The Vistani Knife Fighter, the Heroic level Scarecrow, which is level 10 permanent hireling, the Barovian outfit and hat, and the Black Cat cosmetic pet. The thing that basically you're getting a character slot and the Vistani Knife Fighter and the Scarecrow. Those are kind of the things that I kind of key in on personally.
My cosmetic is pretty top tier. Not really digging the hat, I'm gonna be honest here. But I'm wearing the coat right now, like
sure.
the outfit and then the remnant crown.
I will say I'm not big on cosmetics. Cosmetic pets are kind of just there, and I kind of ignore them. I occasionally have one out just because it's out. I do kind of like the pet rock. That's kind of funny. Mostly I have that out because it annoyed my guild leader for a while because she didn't have one and she really wanted one, but now she has one, so that's kind of less of a fun thing to do. I will say though, as someone who's kind of, I don't really care that much about cosmetics. Like I don't buy cosmetics hardly ever, unless I get really bored with. I think I've bought 2 cosmetics, ever. But I do like the Barovian and the Vampire Hunter, which we'll talk about. I do like them both. They look really good. I even don't mind the hat. The hat. I was wearing it on my DDOCast Splat character, actually, the whole set. So
the Barovian outfit and hat look great on dwarves and half-orcs. That's all I got to say.
He was a halfling, so but I'm wearing the coat.
Oh.
I mean, look, I use the ones I have, right? Like I'll use them, and because I got a mirror from somewhere, I don't really remember where.
Daily Dice.
It might have been Daily Dice. It might have been a freebie or something. But I did grab the mushroom hat and put that on my monk because that just seemed really appropriate. But otherwise, I'm not a big cosmetics guy, but I do like these cosmetics. Now the Black Cat pet. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it seems out of place for me, but It's one of those things I've never like. Do we actually have cats in Zendrick? Is that a thing? Seems like such a mundane. Well, I guess you get it familiars, right? But
it's a spooky Halloween black cat, man.
Yeah,
It's Halloween themed.
So here's the thing too. Like I am not a cat person. For me, cats are like evil, and I know this is not there's a lot of people who really love cats, and that's fine. I'm allergic to cats. Like really
That's no
badly allergic
excuse.
to cats.
That's no excuse. No, I play a lot of Dungeons and Dress Up online, and I can safely say that the cosmetics available to Ravenloft, top tier, really expanded my options there. My build is all over the place.
But so this one is $40 more. You get a couple more goodies, but really I think that the thing that's going to impact your gameplay probably is getting Vistani Knife Fighter, maybe a character slot if you need more character slots, and the Scarecrow, the heroic level Scarecrow. So it's kind of a good middle of the road. The Ultimate Fan Bundle is $130. You do get 30 days VIP with the Collector's Edition, which if you were to just buy a 1-month VIP pass, that's about $15. So that does kind of knock the price down a little bit. The Ultimate Fan Bundle, you get 60 days of VIP, which you can get a 90-day VIP pass for $30, I think is what it was. So that kind of knocks the price down. So if you take that out of the equation, you're really getting about $100. You're paying about $100 after you get the VIP part. This comes with 140 Astral Shards, 3 Supreme Res Cakes, 2 Ethereal Rush Shrines, 5 Mirrors of Glamoring, the Knife Fighter, the Heroic level Scarecrow, the Legendary Scarecrow, so that's a level 30 permanent hireling. They're pretty beefy. You can also repair them, which I really liked. That was kind of a fun...
Yeah, we did that on DDOCast Splat because I brought out the Heroic one. And that Heroic one was tough as nails, I'll tell you, for a 10th level hireling.
They're pretty beefy. You get the Barovian outfits and the Black Cat, the Vampire Hunter outfit, which is pretty slick. I do really like. Again, I like the look of that. By the way, you can wear these on Warforged.
Yes, we have the technology. The technology's there.
Yay! So that's. Although you know what I would say is it would be really fun if they would come up with the Warforged, the Lord of Blades armor that I could wear on something not a Warforged. That'd be really cool.
It's really painful, wouldn't it? You're just like walking around, you got like knives stuck in you. Like that would be. I wouldn't want that.
That is the only cosmetic the only time I ever saw a cosmetic like, I'm getting that.
Yeah, I accidentally threw mine away because I didn't know that's how that works. So I will never get that again.
You also get the Raven Scourge ASMR Iconic, 10 slots of shared storage, so you can only get here. And then for every character, you get a Mist of Weapon Aura and a Racial Enhancement Tome, and a Bottle of Mist, which will kind of magically transport you to Ravenloft. And the thing so when I was looking at these price ranges, the thing that really jumped out at me was, one, that was more expensive than it's been in the past. And two, the Ultimate Bundle has a lot of really compelling stuff in it that the other ones don't. I remember when Shadowfell came out, the way they did Shadowfell was a little bit different because there were 2 bundles, and then there was like a legendary upgrade you could get with either bundle. It kind of had a lot of the more fun stuff in it. This one, if you want kind of the more fun, like the Scarecrows, the shared storage, a Racial Enhancement Tome, that's all in that upper bundle. So that was kind of my initial reaction was, wow, the Ultimate Bundle has a lot of really nice stuff in it that the other bundles don't. More so than they did in the past. So yeah, and that bundle came out to be, I had to do some trickery with points and assigning values to some stuff, but it came out to be about 18,000 points, which came out to about 180 points per dollar. That assumes a couple of things. For comparison, the Shadowfell Conspiracy came out to be about 290 points per dollar and didn't include the content. On the other hand, the nice thing about the Ravenloft bundles is you can always get all of this stuff. There's nothing that's exclusive to pre-purchase, which is a big change from what we had before. So, having gone through those, and this is probably more for Evilbeeker and I, but what recommendations do we have for people who are looking at, they're not sure, they haven't bought Ravenloft yet, what are they looking for? What do you like about the packs, and where would you kind of maybe point people to?
Well, for me, for my guild, we have somebody's bought each one of these. Okay, so the one gentleman who's on a budget, he went for the standard one, which is understandable. If you can't afford it, or your Christmas budget is kind of tough, it's that time of year, you know what, go for the standard. You'll get the content. For us, the content is key, right? I mean, you want to be able to play in the world. You want to experience the Ravenloft setting and the quests and what have you. If you're not interested on all the other tchotchkes, well, and you're already a VIP, which means you have ASMR, then go for the standard package. It's a nice treat yourself Christmas present. If you love D&D, DDO, if you love D&D and DDO, you're really into Ravenloft and the 60 days VIP is very appealing to you, then the Ultimate Fan Bundle, that's the way to go. Not everybody can afford it. I'm sure Standing Stone Games understands that. That's why they offer the standard edition. I mean, if they only offered the 2 and not the standard, I think a lot more people would be turned off. I will say one thing, the shared storage, I believe that's, if you have maxed out your shared storage, I'm pretty sure that this adds an additional 10 slots to that.
Yeah, it's a unique 10. You will only be able to get those 10 from that package.
And I know that point alone sold it for one person I know. They're like, I love shared storage. I got to get that. I need 10 more spaces. So, and then middle of the road, if the 30-day VIP and the some of the other cosmetic stuff is appealing to you, the collector's edition, to me, that's probably the least desirable, only because, me as a complete geek for Ravenloft, the Ultimate Fan Bundle wasn't anything I would not have purchased. But if you're on a budget and you still love DDO, or if you're a premium player and want to experience it, the standard version, I think, is your best choice.
I like this from the chat. Jack Roma in the chat says, if you want to be able to play the new content, buy the base. If you want to support the game, buy the middle tier. If you really like cosmetics and love the game, buy the Ultimate Fan Bundle. Which is kind of a pretty good...
Yep.
A pretty good breakdown. And even as someone who, if you... Again, this comes down, you got to figure out how much can you afford. That's a big part of it. It is kind of nice it's coming out around Christmas, so... and you can, send the link to your family and say, hey, this is what I'd like for Christmas. Buy me this one, then just send me the email. That could work. The Ultimate Bundle really pushes the cosmetics, but it also has some nice useful things like the Iconic Hero, the shared storage, Racial Enhancement Tome. Now, granted, other than the shared storage, you'll be able to, I'm assuming, going to be able to get that stuff eventually.
And maybe not the Scarecrow.
Yeah, the Scarecrow you'll probably only be able to get here. Yeah. My kind of recommendation would be if you have, you normally buy a bundle of points once or twice a year and stuff, I would probably recommend, and you want some stuff, I'd probably recommend skipping that and then getting the Ultimate Fan Bundle if you can. Just from the standpoint that you'll probably save, what you don't want to do is buy the collector's bundle and then, a year down the road, then go back and get the Ultimate Fan Bundle so you can get the other things that you didn't get that now you really want. So it's kind of a tricky thing to balance there. So
the one thing that I'll say, for me, the Ultimate Fan Bundle, there was one small drawback when I compared it to previous ones. So when you got the Menace of the Underdark, you had the 2 Owlbears. But the Epic Owlbear wasn't 30th level. I think it's 24th or 25th level.
25, I think.
Yeah. So the downside for me for that bundle was I got to be level 30 to take advantage of the legendary, and who knows if I'm going to stay at 30. But if you got a character that you keep at 30 exclusively, and you just use that character for legendary content, then that's great.
Do you have to be level 30? I would have thought. I haven't checked because I haven't really been playing the level, but
nope.
Is it level 30?
Yeah, it says 30.
Because the other ones, it's 2 levels lower. So.
Yeah, so those
mess up bravery bonus sometimes, though.
Yeah, they can.
Like even if their level is lower, so people get confused. I'm not saying that was the reasoning behind it, but that is just a thing that happens.
Yeah. So that one was a drawback for me. That was my one nitpick on the Ultimate Fan Bundle.
I think a lot of people wanted there to be points involved. There also wasn't any other content involved that you would get that has been a constant thing in the past. So there's some of that stuff that people wanted to see and didn't. But I think at the end of the day, the collector's edition seems to be like if you can't afford the Ultimate Fan Bundle, want to get some of the other stuff, you do get a little bit more bang for your buck than the standard version with the collectors, but it kind of looked to me like, well, if you're on a budget, you would probably get the standard edition and then get Vistani Knife Fighter and possibly the Iconic with points later, which would really take you less than 2,000 points to get. And then you wouldn't get the cosmetics and the Scarecrow, which, you don't need the Scarecrows. They're just kind of fun to have. You can build your own party kind of a thing, but you can also find other players to play with. So I don't think that's necessarily a big thing. And if you take out the Scarecrows and the cosmetics and those two things, at that point, even at the Ultimate Bundle, you're only getting 10 slots, missing 10 slots of shared storage. You can probably get racial enhancement tomes later. So if cosmetics aren't your thing and you're on a budget, get the standard. That would really be where I would say. So that's kind of what struck to me. If you're on the budget, you're probably going to get the standard. I wouldn't expect you to get the collectors. I'm not entirely sure if I'm supposed to say this, but my understanding is the Ultimate Fan Bundle is something that they put there for people who want it. The expectation of Standing Stone Games is not that they want everyone to feel like or even expect everyone to go out and buy an Ultimate Fan Bundle. Those were, I think, and there's been a lot of talk about how much did Standing Stone Games really get to decide on the price points. So we've got 3 price points. They tried to make them, worth it for people if they wanted to get them. But I think I think their expectation was that they wouldn't have a high percentage of people getting the Ultimate Fan Bundle.
Well, and remember too, this is licensed content, so some of these dollars do go back to Wizards of the Coast. So it has to be profitable for everybody. I think if you're on a budget, the standard, like you mentioned, that standard's definitely a way to go. At least then you're seeing what's all involved, and then, like you said, buy with points later if you need to.
And it'll be, we've had new tomes in the past. They'll be available. They always become the XP tomes and the Tomes of Fate all became available. The cosmetics would be the thing you're not, cosmetics and Scarecrow are the things you're not going to be able to get compared to everything else. So, but if you like those things, you'll probably want to try to squeak out the Ultimate Fan Bundle if you can find the dollars to do it.
Hear, hear.
Okay, so there's our Ravenloft preview. Anything else you want to say about that aspect. We're going to talk about the new news about it in a second. Is there anything else we want to say about that before we move on?
No, I'm good.
I don't want to get sued. I'm not saying anything.
All right. We have, before we get into game news, we have a special treat. We have a segment. Yay, a segment. I've been waiting for almost 200 episodes to get someone to send us a segment. It's really exciting. This is Greetings from Korthos with Grandern. Please enjoy.
Greetings from Korthos. In the grand tradition of segments with DDOCast, this will be the first in a number of editions of the series, which I will entitle Greetings from Korthos. I have always toyed with the idea of putting together a segment for a DDOCast. I've listened to all of the episodes from the beginning, digging through the iTunes vaults to the start in, 2007 with Griffin, the current DDO community manager. Likewise, I've gone through all of the DDO Players episodes, Damsels of DDO, and what I was able to get a hold of from the DDO Cocktail Hour. I wasn't sure what I could contribute, and have always been busy with real-life stuff, but when Orion got the default server and then putting together the Korthos greeter, I thought doing something on that might be of value to the community. I reached out to Patrick on the subject a while back and appreciate his positive response there. And with the timely change of the default server a couple of weeks ago, around October 21st, this segment will carry a meaning not just for all servers, but in particular the new default server, Kenneth. So, I will start this first edition with a little information about me. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, and currently live in Japan. I lived in Nagoya for a number of years and now reside in Tokyo. I've been playing DDO since about 2011 and mainly play on the Orion server, although I have started up characters on other servers. I mainly play 4 characters, the original concept being one for each D&D archetype. Their names are Vexer, who is a melee, Zapaniza, who is an arcane, Yasmir, a rogue, and my quote-unquote main, Grandern, which is a healer, but I haven't been playing a whole lot lately. The new cleric domains do look very enticing, however. I played a lot of D&D when I was young, but living in the suburbs of Vancouver and Surrey, there just weren't a lot of kids around who were playing D&D at the time. I was playing a lot of video games, though. I had an old Pong machine that we got from Radio Shack, and I remember begging my mom for an Atari when it first came out, so I can appreciate Cordovin's love for the Atari machine. I played a lot of the old Gold Box D&D games on my Commodore 64, and I still have Baldur's Gate on my laptop, and will play that when I'm someplace without Wi-Fi. I dabbled a bit in Neverwinter Online when it first came out, and still do play D&D when I can, and in fact got the new Player's Handbook and DM's Guide from a friend a couple of months ago. For my DDO playing style, I would say I'm casual hardcore. When I'm busy, I'll play maybe 10 or 15 hours a week, and when I do have more time, I may play up to 40 hours a week or more. I've got all 4 characters to a point where they can hang with elite groups and not be a detriment, going down all the time in legendary elite raids. Reaper is what I'm working on now, and getting all characters Reaper capable. I started out as a free-to-play player, then premium, for the first 6 years, and went VIP with the transition to Standing Stone Games. I did get the Ravenloft Ultimate Fan Bundle and spent the last couple weekends running around Delara's Graveyard for the Night Revels event with my pet Raven and fancy Vampire Hunter hat. All right, enough about me. What is this segment going to be about? Well, I will start out by introducing the Greeter project and follow with my experiences meeting new players in Korthos. Beyond that, who knows? But I do plan for at least a few episodes on a bi-weekly basis or so. I'm not a new player, and if you have decided to commit the time to listening to a podcast about a game, you're most likely not a new player, but we have all started as new players. We all remember, faintly or not so faintly, our beginning steps in the game and interactions with other more experienced players. We can forget those first interactions pretty quick as we get good at the game. Those first few interactions with the game and the people who play it are what somehow first caught our interest, though. I remember the occasional really nice thing someone did, blind acts of kindness with a gift or something really useful at the time. Or the person who set me up with a good weapon, explained to me that +5 weapon like in D&D isn't necessarily the best in DDO. It depends on the damage effect that the weapon has on top of that. I will be talking a little about stuff like that. We also all remember those more poopy interactions we've had as a new player, getting kicked from a group because you didn't know the way to a quest, or just rude things people can say. I won't be talking so much about that. I pug a lot, and one of the fun things about the game is the different people you meet. Sometimes you roll a 1 though, chalk it up as a 1, laugh at it, and move on, I say. For the new player though, too many 1s can suck, and I will be talking about improving the beginner player experience as a community with a focus on those first few interactions starting in Korthos. If you have seen my thread in the DDO forums, aptly titled Korthos Greeter, you will have seen that I, in fact, have 2 greeters. My first character is named Velcom on the sunny side of Korthos, and my second character is named Visit Harbor on the snowy side of Korthos. I will be talking about stuff that is covered in that thread, and also some data I've been collecting along the way. What are new players talking about in Korthos? What are they doing? What questions are they asking? Stay tuned for more on that in upcoming segments. This isn't going to be so much an instructional for new players, but from my perspective, how new players engage in the game. Thus far, I have had a lot of good experiences with the Korthos Greeter. I don't want to give the impression that I am the authority on beginning players, however. Everyone should be the authority, as we all have that experience. Different people will have different ideas on how best to help new players, but what I hope to do with this series is get people thinking and talking about it a little more. Ultimately, it is about DDO as a maturing game, and a maturing community. How do new players approach the game, and how can we make them feel like this could be their home too? So, thanks all for listening, and in the next segment I will start with the basics on how to make a greeter character. Take care.
Thank you, Grandern, for sending in that segment. It's always a fun part of the show to have segments, and really appreciate that. I do want to, just before we get hit into game news, catch up a little bit on the chat room. Zermi said he really likes the Hunter cosmetic that makes him think of Bloodborne, but he doesn't think the cosmetic alone is worth the expansion pack, so he'll probably get the cheaper one. And that's, I think, a totally valid thing. I mean, if there's some nice bells and whistles in the Ultimate, but a lot of it is cosmetics. And that's kind of what I think a lot of people are going to come back to. Do you really want the cosmetics? Are those shiny things really worth it for you? Or are you just going to kind of go the cheap route? Which is a totally valid way to go. With that, let's get into game news. We did have Ravenloft Preview number 2. That's really exciting. Get to see some new stuff, including the raid loot. But really, just quickly, so Ravenloft Preview number 2 has the Land of Broga landscape, 11 of the 12 quests in various states of polish, 1 of the 2 raids, all of the quest loot, all of the raid loot, the Sentient Weapons mechanical side of the system. The flavor side will come later. It's not expected to be in this patch. Also, the racial enhancement point tome. There will likely be a small dev event on Sunday. That's yet to be confirmed. But they'd really like you to check out the stuff and let us know what you think about it. I think we'll start with the raid loot. Because I know, Lynnabel, you're really excited to talk about the raid loot.
So, for some reason. It's
yeah.
Important to note, the 2 throwing raid items are not in the main post. They are in a different dev comment below the original post. So there is a named shuriken and a named throwing dagger. So do not forget those. They are also not purchasable on the Ravenloft Preview for some reason, but a developer can and will drop them if you see one running around, or QA will do that as well. I am a big fan. The shuriken's pretty okay. But the throwing dagger is the entire deck of Tarokka cards in one, and it changes its picked card every 3 seconds. And important to note, this effect does not function if you glamour the weapon. You will get a base copy of the Tarokka card and not the special effects that associate with it. So if you would like to glamour that weapon, it will not change colors. So
it's actually it's not a quote throwing dagger. You're throwing a tarot card.
You're a Tarokka card, actually. They're
card.
Tarokka in Ravenloft.
Ravenloft,
yeah. So it is the suit cards in the 4 suits of the Tarokka deck, as well as 1, 5, 7, and 10 of coins, stars, swords, and something. The last one that I can't remember, but one of those. They each do something different. They each have a different associated color. Yep, it's really cool. It's a good item. It's great. Yeah, you can't purchase the throwing stuff from the vendor, unfortunately, but it is there.
Nice. There is, so just a quick cross-section of the raid loot. A lot of different weapons. No one-handed axes. Boo.
I know.
Come on, where's the one-handed axe?
It was in the last update. It was the Forgotten Axe. It was in the Dragonborn update.
Yeah.
It was the best one we're ever going to get, apparently. We
The
had to wait 12 years between every single hand axe. Oh,
not a hand axe. I need a dwarven axe for my dwarven sword and board.
there are millions of dwarven axes, and there are 2 hand axes. You can wait.
Boo. There's sets of armor, so you can get the armors are all the same, just for different. There's a cloth, there's a medium, light, heavy, docent, that kind of thing. There's a couple of trinkets. Some other random stuff, but it's mostly weapons. There's a lot of weapons, and they have the first thing I think jumped out at me with the weapons is they all have a purple augment slot and a red augment slot, which is pretty awesome. And then it's a fairly good cross section of weapons. The one thing I think that I saw that kind of jumped out at me that was lacking was one-handed weapons that you would like the medium range of one-handed weapons, like longsword. There's a rapier, but like the stuff that you would go with a sword, or with a shield. Other than there's Kopesh and Bastard Sword, but those require feet. So that was kind of the one thing that I saw. But otherwise, it's a pretty good cross section of stuff. They're all fairly different in what they do. A lot of different, some damaging stuff. A lot of special abilities. Most of which we haven't really seen before. Although we've seen some of these in some form or another, like the Tarokka card thing. It seems like it would probably be pretty similar to colors and stuff like that, and the random effects. I'm sure there are different effects, but
very
it's kind of
internally similar to Colors of the Queen. And in fact, I would like to give a shout out to the developer who made Colors of the Queen possible. or colors, and I guess colors of Al-Sharati. Because I used that internal framework in order to make suitably random set of 48 individual options. So yes, thank you for keeping very careful notes. That's
yeah. So there's a pretty good selection of loot here, and like I said, it's mostly weaponry, and that's kind of important, which we'll talk about when we're talking about sentient weapons. But a lot of damage. I mean, there's a short sword. They all have pretty high base weapon damage.
There are two short swords.
There's one that's a kind of a caster short sword, and one that's
my fun short sword, by the way, for those who've been keeping track. Yeah, that's my fun short sword. The fun part's a little broken, but hopefully it should be fine by the time it goes live.
So we're talking about the mirror distortion,
yes.
The mirror between, which is illusion focus, insightful illusion focus, quality illusion focus, spell penetration 8.
Yes.
What's the fun part?
You'll have to find out for yourself. It's very fun. I'll give you that.
Uh-oh.
It's fun.
That's scary.
It's exciting.
The other one that I was like, just to give an example of the echo of the sun swords, the short sword, 7.5 weapon damage, 19 to 20 times 2 crit range. Does 9d6 light damage on hit, 21d6 light damage on a critical hit, 9d10 undead bane, sovereign disruption. So if you want to kill some undead stuff, I mean, that's your short sword right there.
It looks like a lightsaber.
Does it? That's fun.
Oh, I mean, I guess the design, like the actual, like in the Curse of Strahd, and I guess wherever it's depicted officially, the sun sword has like a solid handle, and the blade is made of coruscating light. And so the representation in actual DDO looks just like it, which is to say a lightsaber.
That's exciting.
That's very cool.
Does it actually do light base damage though? Like
I think it should. I don't know.
Like the one out of Caught in the Web.
I tried my best. For example, some of this didn't make it into the notes because some of the tweaks to the weapons are done. Some of the things are not present in the notes. They have to experiment with some of these weapons to find out what they actually do.
Oh boy.
But I will give you this one. The Khopesh is an unholy Celestia. And not only that, but it actually functions, although this isn't ideal for a thrower offhand, it is intended that while you're holding it, if you have a throwing item in the main hand, it would transmute some of its stuff to the shuriken or whatever you're hitting. So it's just kind of funky, funky stuff, interesting choices.
Yeah. But it's a fun little cross section of stuff. The other thing that we got was sentient weapons, which I want to spend a little bit more time on because this is a system as opposed to just a bunch of loot. So here we go. So DDO has a new system coming out, Sentient Weapons. This system allows players to find a sentient weapon with a specific personality, customize its power, and even move the sentient personality from weapon to weapon. Yeehaw! Every sentient weapon drops with a sentient jewel that holds the personality of the weapon, and the power of the weapon is contained in that sentient jewel. So if you want to find a specific personality, you need to find that sentient personality's jewel. The sentient jewel can be pried out of an existing weapon, and the jewel can be attached to a new weapon of sufficient magical power. This transfers the sentience and its power level to the new magical weapon. Once this weapon is sentient and has a sentient jewel, the weapon can also slot sentient filigrees to enhance the weapon's magical properties. A sentient weapon starts with only being able to slot 1 filigree, but as the weapon grows in power, it can slot up to a maximum of 7. Most named weapons that are not crafted and have a minimum level of 21 or higher can accept a sentient jewel and become sentient. This will be applied retroactively to named existing weapons. Appropriate weapons players have already earned can accept sentient jewels if the weapon is capable of becoming sentient. Basically, as designers note, because Dungeons & Dragons has such a variety of weapon types and magical weapons, it is necessary to allow players to move the sentience to a weapon appropriate for their class, race, and feats. This means that players need to be able to use the system with a variety of weapons and weapon types. Now, when it says most weapons that are... So, it says most named items that are not crafted. So, crafting system weapons won't work with the system. So this would be Legendary Green Steel, presumably Thunderforge, those kind of weapons. Which is why it's important that that the new Ravenloft raid has weapons in it, so that you can that are not craftable, so you can actually
also
use them.
do not forget there are 2 other full suites of weapons that cover all 40 options, and those are Sentient compatible. So the Morning Lord and Mother Knight weapons that are
the one they're in Ravenloft. Yeah. So once a weapon has a sentient jewel, that player can build the power of the jewel by feeding the jewel named magical items. The jewel drains the power from the named item and feeds on the magic to increase its own power. The more magical items fed, the more powerful it becomes. Sentient weapon can be empowered with sentient filigree that the player obtains as loot. Each piece of filigree increases the enchantment of the sentient jewel. The more power the sentient jewel is gained, the more pieces of filigree can be attached to the weapon's jewel. Sometimes a weapon might be found with a jewel already attached to the weapon with a specific personality. Other times, such as during the destruction system, the weapon and jewel might be delivered independently. The sentient weapon makes comments to the player as the weapon is held, and the player fights, finishes quests, and finds treasure. The comments are actual game voices coupled with text sent to the chat panel. The player will have a UI option to turn off one or both of those. The weapons can make comments based on a number of criteria, including how a player is fighting, whether the player dies, when the player finds treasure, and it can even make comments when the player takes certain actions in quests. It's kind of fun. There is a tutorial for the sentient weapons. The player will be given a weapon and their first sentient jewel. They will be taught how to slot the sentient jewel and add a filigree. After that, new sentient jewels will be found infrequently, but when they are, they will be attached to a weapon. We expect new gems to come out as treasure occasionally in the coming updates. Each piece of sentient filigree adds magical power on top of the weapon's enchantments. Each filigree has primary power. It also belongs to a set. That means each piece of the filigree not only adds effects to the weapon, but as you add more and more pieces of filigree to form a specific set, the weapon will gain more bonus powers. Each set has a bonus power for having 2 pieces of the sets, and set ranges from a total of 3 to 5. Note that since a fully empowered can hold 7 pieces of filigree, the player will have to mix and match filigree from multiple sets to find the best combination of set bonuses. A weapon can only have 1 of each filigree. You cannot slot 2 of the same filigree in one weapon. Filigree will have their own rarity. Some sets will be less common than others. In addition, each filigree has a rare chance to drop with an upgraded bonus, which has an additional effect on it. Players can fairly easily obtain and use sentient destroyer tools to destroy a filigree or even a sentient jewel to open up the slot for a new piece. There'll be a setup in the crafting system for that. Players can also obtain sentient unslotted tools that drop in loot that allow themselves to unslot a filigree rather than destroy it, and these tools can even unslot the sentient jewel itself. You can only do that to the jewel if you have taken all the filigrees off of it first. And those will also be available in the store, I believe. So the way the progression works, you build sentient XP by feeding native items to the sentient jewel. You do this by dragging the appropriate item into the appropriate slot in the sentient item panel, which will be accessible through the inventory page. So how much XP do you get? If the minimum level requirement of the item is 1 to 20, it adds a number of XP equal to the minimum level, so not very much. If the minimum level is 21 to 27, it adds an XP equal to the minimum level times 5. 28 or higher, it adds the number of XP equal to the minimum level times 10. So significantly more. To open the slots, the first slot is for free. The second one is 2,000 XP, then 6,000, 12,000, 20,000. And then after that, it becomes more expensive. The 6th and 7th slots are another 20,000 each. So it will... you'll need almost 70 named items at a top level to reach 5 filigree slots. It gets more expensive afterwards. All right, the FAQ. How do you add sentient jewel to a weapon that accepts sentience? There's now a red button on the right of the inventory panel which pulls open the sentient weapon menu. Binding status. Sentient weapons are as per the named item, so it varies. Sentient jewels will be bound to a count. Filigrees will vary depending on the content, but probably unbound so players can trade and sell the ones they don't want. The bonuses, I'm not going to go through the list of bonuses. There's a lot of them, but there's several in each set. There's a whole bunch of different options for them. They'll have an ability or a bonus on them, and then there's the rare bonus that you can possibly get on them. Those bonuses are pretty small. The set bonuses are where the real magic is. So it's intended that the juicy, flavorful stuff should be in the set bonuses, not the bonus of the base filigrees. This one's important and is kind of hidden. Can someone fight with 2 weapons, wield 2 sentient weapons? Weapons with a sentient jewel slotted in them will reject being placed in your offhand. That's going to be important. I'm sure this is a balancing thing, but be aware of that. If you put sentience on a weapon, you can't use it in your offhand. It will only be a main hand weapon.
That severely limits the using a sentient weapon as the throwing offhand. So you're going to, if you want to participate in sentient, it has to be the shuriken or the throwing dagger or the throwing axe. It has to be the actual item.
Yeah. And again, that's a balancing thing, right? So you can't have more sentient bonuses. How will you obtain Unslaughters and Destroyers? Destroyer tools will probably be on vendors for plat. Unslaughters will drop in loot, and you can buy them in the store. What weapons will accept sentience? A large portion of named weapons with minimum levels higher than 21 will accept sentience. There are exceptions set, including, most notably, named items that go through a certain crafting or upgrading systems. This list includes, but is not limited to, upgraded weapons from Temple of the Mental Evil, Legendary Greensteel, and Thunderforged weapons. Does adding a sentient jewel or the filigree to weapon alter the weapon's minimum level? No. I'm just gonna say this. No. They may have filigree with minimum level requirement someday, maybe, but that doesn't exist in this iteration. Do the filigrees go into any bags? Yes, the Augment Bags, which also now have a search function. Yay.
Yeah.
Which would kind of say, too, like, maybe we need to have Augment Bags be available in the actual game without spending points, but...
Maybe, I mean, green bags are available via paper rewards. It might be possible in the future.
Maybe. This is a sentient weapon. Does it do anything but give me mechanical benefits? Yes, you will occasionally hear them making comments, as sentient weapons should. Does the personality of sentient weapon have any impact on the mechanical benefits? No. Other than they will be tied to that. What happens to the XP accumulated if you unslot a sentient jewel from weapon? It stays with the sentient jewel. Hey, that's pretty neat, so you can move it around. I like that feature.
Yeah, it's like if, like, say for example, you've got a really cool sword that you're using and you love it and you like the personality, and then 6 updates later there's a better sword that you like more. You don't lose all of your progress with that. Like you get to move it around with you.
Yeah, so that'll be really great. So, Mr. Beaker, what jumps out at you for this? Are you excited?
This is pretty cool. I mean, as an old-time gamer, you always had the intelligent weapons that could take you over and that would talk to you and make comments while you fight. This is pretty cool. I like that you can customize them to your character. I like that you can. The big thing for me is that you can move them around. That's huge.
Yeah.
Because so many times in early DDO, you get something cool and it'd be stuck on one character, and I love it that you can move these around.
The one thing with the moving around is I wish it wasn't tied to the personality part, only because they said that they may add more in the future. Yeah.
I mean, buyer beware.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll probably be fine just in general, but it would be really neat if those two things were not tied together. Like it was you found a jewel and then the personality was a second part that you put on it. That's probably the one thing that I don't. It's not really a big deal, but that's probably the one thing I was kind of like, oh, if only. Now, having said that'll probably depend too on how much does it really take to do that, to upgrade this stuff. It may actually not be that bad. When I first read this, I was like, oh, named weapons. Okay, we'll start finding new weapons. Then I was like, oh no, it's named items. There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
I do like the way that they upgrade. Like I like how you feed them. I think that's a good mechanic. But I also have like a little bit of hesitation in the I wonder what that's going to do to. Oh look, that's a named item that I want. No, I'm sorry, you can't have it. I'm feeding it to my sentient weapon. That's
the same thing. It's the same thing as someone. I honestly think that the fears of that are honestly entirely unfounded. So the fact that this isn't like the experience you get is based on the minimum level. If someone really wants like level 29 raid gear, say, okay, then great. I'll trade you the next level 29 item I get from literally anywhere else, and it's going to be exactly the same.
Sure. I did see a suggestion that maybe raid loot should be excluded from that, which I would be fine with. I think it's one of those things that I think it'll be more of a thing early on, and as time happens, it will be less of a thing because people won't. You only need so many,
people said
right?
the same thing about bound to account. They're like, oh, and no one's gonna leave anything in the chest anymore because of they could just keep it in bound to account, But
yeah,
I honestly think,
I don't know if it's that's the best comparison, but I kind of see what you're saying. I think it's one of those things that when it first comes out, people will hoard things a little bit more, and as time goes on, they won't need them anymore, and then it'll kind of go back to where we were. That's kind of my...
Yeah. I honestly think that the amount of named loot that I leave in chests from, like, the Druids chain is way more than the amount of, like, stuff that I would have not pass or that I would want to pass anyway, Like, the extra loot that I have is more than the stuff that I would want to give up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be an issue finding stuff. Crexus Pendragon is this thing in the chat. I would not worry about items to sack. Yeah, I don't think I would worry about it either. And if I was in a raid, me personally, if I was in a raid and something dropped and people were like, hey, does anyone want this? I'm like, please, yes, this is an important piece of gear that I've been looking for. Here you go. I'm not gonna use that to increase my own weapon like that. But at the same time, I do appreciate that there's a lot of named items in the game. And can we just agree that there are a lot of named items that they're not all created equal in terms of power level? And there's a lot of named items that people maybe don't want. So it's nice to have a use for those. That'll be nice. And I think the community in general will self-police itself pretty well. As far as what you can get on them, again, I don't want to go through the whole list. It's a huge list. There's generally 5 or 6 or 5 to even more filigrees from each set. Usually there's at least one. It seems like there's at least one more filigree that you can put in from a set than you need to get the set bonuses. But some of the stuff that are on some of the set bonuses, spell DCs. There's one that does plus cash levels to healing spells, spell points, positive spell power, melee power. There's some sneak attacks, assassinate DCs. There's some fun things like hit points and spell points, percent changes for different effects. There's one where on a 20, let's see if we can find it. There's one that's like on a 20, you get a better critical damage amount, so that's pretty neat. There's a summoner one where if you have 3 pieces, then your minions are going to get a +8 to ability scores and a +40 melee power, PRR, and MRR. There's 2 steps to that. So for 2 pieces, you get half of that, and the third piece, you get another of that again. So that's kind of neat. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff here. We'll link to this in the show notes. I'd encourage you to kind of look through them. It'll be a fun system, I think, and I think it's a pretty good long-term system. But I think it strikes a little bit of a better balance than, well, I don't know if I want to say Reaper has a bad balance, but I think people will find the grindiness of it more agreeable in terms of the XP, and then it's mostly about finding the right loot. Which, who knows how easy that'll be.
I think Reaper, for me and many other players, isn't something to grind at. It's just something to do. Like, I would just fall asleep during quests on Heroic Elite. It's just something to do. I think the system has a lot of room to expand in any number of directions, so that in future large updates, adding more variability, adding cooler filigrees and stuff like that, it's a good thing to build off of. Like a hook point that, future designers can look at and say, man, it would be cool if we had a really cool filigree with this idea and it feels expandable rather than kind of dead end, Like the previous endgame progression system that was created, Epic Destinies. I think many people had found criticism in that because it's very difficult for a designer to go in and on a whim go, let's just make another Epic Destiny. But, I think it'd be pretty easy. I don't think it'd be easy at all. I just add more. I'll go do that. Give me a month and a half and like a gun. Um, but I think it's a very elegant system, and I'm happy that some people seem to really like it.
And it's starting off pretty robust as
Mhm.
well. And there's a lot of room to expand it, so that's great. Anything else you want to say about Sentient Weapons? We'll start cruising through other stuff.
You bet.
All right. Bonus days through November 19th, you can get double Commendations of Valor and double Mysterious Remnants. That's double the chance of them to drop. Store news. The sale for the week is Improve Your Character. You get 20% off of select stat tomes, skill tomes, tomes of learning, and more through November 23rd. Also, through November 27th, you can get plus 20 Hearts of Wood. And if you get a plus 20 Heart of Wood, you get a free plus 5 Heart of Wood. The reason they do that is so you can try to get rid of some of that third class, basically.
Yeah.
Because
It's a real bail me out build. If you've really messed up your build beyond repair, this is like the give up option.
If you use a plus 20 Heart of Wood and you already have 3 classes, it can be very you basically have to. You can only choose those 3 classes, whereas use the plus 5 Heart of Wood first. You can get rid of one of those third classes, and then you can be whatever class you want. That's why that's there. And it's pretty common. Pretty much every time they put plus 20 Hearts of Wood out, they give you a free plus 5 because of that reason. See, the weekly coupon is a light spell point potion times 10 with the coupon code OMNOM spells. That's OMNOM spells. Not the easiest one of those to say. Community news, the 259th Chronicle. This is exciting. DDO Puzzles is a brand new DDO puzzle solver by Grimoire. You can check out the app, which solves numerous puzzles in the game. I know a lot of people are really excited about that. It is a pretty slick thing.
There's been one for the iPhone for a while, but not the Android.
I have one on Android. I have one on Android right now. Actually, I've got 2. DDO Raiders has one, and then I have one called DDO Puzzle Solver.
This is a new one, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, this is a new one.
Eduardo takes the cake in one of the sweetest posts yet on Facebook. That was a pretty slick cake. See, the guild for the week, the Helsing organization, a very small guild with just a couple of active members looking for other casual players to join them on Thelanis. The comment, what do kobolds celebrate? Vacation, right?
Fresh meat.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Oh man, I was so against the kobold player race. I was so happy that Dragonborn won the poll. I was like sweating off in the distance. They're like, yeah, kobold player race. I'm like, no. Maybe I'm popular, but I actually just totally detest kobolds. The same way that you hate cats, and that it's disappointing and unfair.
I don't know. I have a reason to be against cats, but anyways, let's see. Fansite news. DDOCast discussed leveling 16 to 18. Thanks for the shout out there. The Damsels of DDO went to Night Revels from their 78th episode. DDO Players News had its final show prior to a break. I'll talk about that in a minute. Bachelor Gore brings Fridays Nights to Argonescence. Samus Grobo streams DDO regularly. You can give his channel a follow. See, Geek Mom brings the DDO to a Comic-Con. Mickey hit week 49 of rating. Strim Tom challenged himself in Reaper difficulty. Rocket Fingers 2 plays DDO on YouTube. That's a Russian language video. That's pretty neat. The Templar Knights of Justice take on 200 kobolds. Frets run Insane Asylum on Reaper. A very bad guild finds remarkable drops. And DDO PL lives again. The Polish live stream is back. Let's see. Wiz King got a lot of visitors in this week's weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream. You can check that out. Let's see. DDO Players News. So they had the 155th episode. They're going to be on a hiatus for a little bit. Drac has some family stuff that he needs to deal with that's very important. So hopefully they won't be gone too long. But if you're wondering, that's what's going on there. You can follow Drac on Twitter if you are looking for kind of more information. He's got some personal family life stuff that he has to deal with, so the show's going to be offline for a little while. The City Plays DDO had a post about Ravenloft, kind of similar to what a little bit more in depth and another perspective of should you buy Ravenloft and what should you buy. Also, an event. This is exciting. There's a Ravenloft Preview video contest on the forums. So Ravenloft is coming.
I'm going to enter this, by the way. I'm totally going to do it. I'm going to.
This is pretty exciting. So Ravenloft's coming out. We need to tell the world about it via in-game footage. There's no plans to have an actual teaser video. So what this is a contest to create your own teaser video. It will run. It starts now. It will run until 2 weeks after Ravenloft is added to the game. So that is currently would be December 19th if it is indeed released on December 5th. The reason for that is to allow people to get video of the content as opposed to just being on Lemania. This is being hosted by Gratch on the forums. The prizes, sit down, make sure you're ready for this. The first place prize is a 23,000 point code. The second place is a 5,000 point code, and third place is a 2 months VIP code. So there's some pretty slick prizes here. If you need help on creating a video, I would suggest you listen to our show a couple weeks ago on live streaming. It's basically the same thing, except you're not live, and you can go in and edit it afterwards. But yeah, so this is a really cool thing that's going on. Great prizes. I'm excited to see what players can come up with for preview videos. Should be pretty entertaining. I would also recommend pay attention to copyright rules about using other people's music. I would probably suggest trying to use DDO music if you can, since that's what it is, and that would kind of help promote that anyways. But just kind of be generally aware of that. And also, November Team DDO is happening as well. They're about halfway through it. I didn't check to see where they are.
They're doing really well.
But yeah, I think they're doing pretty good. I don't know if what benchmarks they've reached, but we'll check that before our next show. All right, that will bring us to Lightning Post. A couple things chiming in about what we were talking about last week. Amersan kind of chimed in. We were talking about there's not a lot of endgame armor. He said between Legendary Hound of Zoriat and Legendary Type of Spine, there are two types of armor, all level 20. Oh, so we were saying there's two types. And we're wearing heavy armor. Thunderforge level 28. He says there's high mob damage, tends to make the DR obsolete, but the Thunderforge DR has a lot of high stuff. Yeah, so he was kind of saying there's a lot of armors. Look, there's like 20 armor or 14 armors in the Legendary Spine and Hound of Zoriat. That's true. And there's a lot of stuff. There's also a range of stuff on the Thunderforge. I think what Ash Harris and I were kind of both saying is that if you look at those armors, there's really basically three types of armor in the Hound of Zoriat Legendary Spine stuff. They just come in different armor types. And so what we're kind of saying is, yes, there are 14 or so options out of that. But if you really kind of look at the numbers, you basically get to choose one of three, maybe, depending on what armor you wear. So there's fewer options there than it appears, which is a great way to do it. I love that they have that right, and we see this in the Ravenloft armors, where the armors are all the same. They just come in every variety you might need them to come in, so you could actually wear it. Which is a good way to support character choice and stuff like that. But once you start thinking about it that way, there's not as many options, if that makes sense. Did I explain that well?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Having said, he's right. There's 14 armors in there. And I get what he's saying, that he thinks so. There's a lot more choices than we're giving credit for. Yes, there are more choices than we're giving it credit for. That is completely true. We would like to see more choices, irrespective of the different classes of armor you could wear. FuzzyDuck81 said, Lords of Dust Chain is a great one. We forgot to mention the double cross bow. The epic version he still regularly uses at caps. It has crippling and enervation. And he slots an Endless Night Augment. Nice combination for double chance of negative levels. Great debuffer and crowd control. Yeah. It's also one of the few chains where the Scroll Seal shard gear isn't too hard to get since it runs so regularly. I might have a bone to pick with the shards being easy to get, just because I can never seem to get the shards I'm interested in. But sure.
I know, I've been looking for the Shard of the Silver Slinger for, I guess, 18 years, 19 years. So it's just never going to happen.
Longer than the game's been out? That's impressive.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible.
The Shroud... Go ahead.
It feels that long with some of these.
No.
Yeah, it seems like the Silver Slinger and Silver Bow shards and seals are a lot more rare for some reason.
I just can't believe I'm going to have an actual use for my 12 million Venom blades.
Yeah, right.
Like, I knew I was holding on to them for a reason.
The Shroud Flagging quests are on his always run list, but with the introduction of champions, crikey, they've become a real challenge despite their age. Quick note, if you want to burn through them just for the flagging, though, casual only has a 50% chance of dropping the stone. Yeah, that's important. So stick to normal unless you've already got a completed Signet Stone. He likes to do the Slayer's Rare Explorers and Reaver's Reach, and it's worth grabbing the gems for the other explorers to get to the Eerie Forest. Or is that nifty little mechanic to summon the vampire by sacrificing enemies on the altar? Yeah, that's fun. He used to enjoy this quest back in the day, and Sealer Souls was a lot of fun. It still is, but yeah, it's been a long time.
It's honestly overrated. I don't know. I've been in there a few times, quite recently. I don't know. Compared to Titan Raid, I would think is the more fun of the Forgotten Raids.
Well, I mean, it's not really a raid, but yeah, it was a fun quest. It was a challenging quest. People just don't run it. It's the flagging mechanic is annoying.
Yeah.
Says Fuzzy that continues a useful tip when running Zoran Chain in the 12. If you get a blinding effect from any source on the eyeballs enemies, it's an insta kill. Glitter Dust, particularly with the high DC from Rogue Mechanics Trap or Sleet Storm, is basically a murder zone. Yeah, great trick. Shout out to the Earthshatter Warhammer from that chain. It's a pretty nice weapon, and it's insta kill effect against stone enemies. It's a no start. It can be worth holding onto for situational use even at cap. If you're a stick user, the Palace of Stone drops the Bone Crusher's Staff. Nice weapon as well. Good Intentions, great quest with some amazing loot. Watch out for those constructs and some hefty adamantine DR. Yeah, they do. He also likes the Hardened Hide armor that drops in there. It has some good effects, much higher than normal maximum dodge cap for medium armor, and has a pretty nice practical Gameson-style appearance too. It says for the subterranean, it's worth learning how to find and farm Garamel, since it has a big chest, has increased drop chance for a number of old but still good gear like Sunblades. Yeah, those are pretty handy. Terminal Delirium is amazing. He says it's one of those quests that everyone should run once just for the experience. But yeah, it can be tricky on higher difficulties. Yes, it can.
Do it sober.
Yeah, there you go. He also points out the epic Stonewall shield, one of the very few Druid-compatible tower shields. Yeah. Let's see. Inspired Core is a lot of fun. Shout out to Elector's Hamlet for the Mind Center with its displacement clicky. Yeah, the problem with that, though, is you have to, like, switch gear to it, and then it only lasts for 30 seconds, which is the reason I never really use it. He does, however, like he also likes it for the cosmetic, for the rainbow look. Yeah. Survey question of the week comes from Wanatuck on Valenus. Do you feel Ravenloft will be good? My answer is yes.
Yes.
Here. Yes.
No, I'm non-affiliated. This is just unbiased. You trust me. Yes.
I mean, I think it'll be great.
It's going to be great. Oh my God. It's so
the loot already looks compelling. I think people will be running it.
Even the grass, it's the grassiest grass you'll ever see. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well,
it's great.
And one thing I'll say about Ravenloft. So if some people will probably have moved away from DDO because it's just the same content over and over and over. If you're looking for something it's great DDO based content, but with just a little bit of different flavor, I think Ravenloft's going to surprise a lot of people and bring some people back to the game.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's kind of the idea, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to get some new content. It's a big drop of new content. It'll be great.
It's always fun.
I will probably need to make sure all of my various characters are in raiding shape so I can flag them and get them so I don't have to use a bunch of raid timers to run the new raids. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's close out the show. Anything you guys want to plug here?
Nothing for me other than everybody have a good Thanksgiving.
Indeed.
Yeah, have a good Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanks for letting me on the show again.
Yeah, always a pleasure to have you. Thanks for my two guests here, and thanks to all the contributors for DDOCast. And yay, a segment from Grandern. That's great. Also, thanks to everyone listening to the show, especially the folks in the chat room. And thanks to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast, and to Cyber for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. You can hit us up for DDOCast at DDOCast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show or have a comment on this episode, or a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us debate, or you just want to say hi, leave us a comment, or email us at DDOCast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip comes from Tarnish on Argonison. It says, don't let mobs back you into a circle, then you won't be able to escape. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.